Before we begin, this story contains discussion of a mysterious disappearance and unresolved theories about what may have happened. If that's something you need to step away from, we understand. Take care of yourself first. This episode's narration is AI generated. The research, writing, and editorial decisions behind every story are made with care for accuracy and respect for those involved. September 16, 1890. A man boards an express train in Dijon, France, bound for Paris. He carries luggage and equipment related to his work. He's traveling to England, then on to America for a public demonstration that could change his life. The train departs on schedule. He is never seen again. No body, no luggage, no trace. The man who shot the first moving picture in human history simply vanished between two cities. You're listening to The Unlit Room. Every story in here actually happened. That's the part that should scare you. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. Today, the inventor who taught a camera to remember motion, and then disappeared before history could remember him. Louis-Aimé Augustin Loup Prances was born in Metz, France, in 1841. He studied chemistry in Leipzig. He trained in photography. In his 20s, he befriended a British family named Whitley during his studies, and in 1869 he married Elizabeth Whitley and settled in Leeds, England. Leeds was an industrial city, all brick and smoke and movement. It was the kind of place where inventors could tinker in workshops without attracting too much attention. Prances wasn't just interested in still photographs, he wanted to capture motion itself. In the 1880s, that idea was borderline impossible. A photograph froze a single instant. But Loup Prances was chasing something harder, a way to make a series of photographs fast enough that when played back, they would create the illusion of movement. By 1886, he was filing patents in the United States and Europe for a motion picture apparatus. The early designs used multiple lenses, 16 at a time, each capturing a different frame in rapid sequence. It was clunky, heavy, and impractical for anything beyond a proof of concept. But Loup Prances kept refining it. By 1888, he had simplified the design down to a single lens. On October 14, 1888, in the back garden of the Whitley family home in Roundhay, a quiet suburb of Leeds, he set up his camera. It was a heavy wooden box mounted on a stand. He aimed it at a small group of family members and a friend walking in a loose circle on the lawn. Long coats, a wide hat, a skirt swaying with each step. The camera captured roughly 2 seconds of motion. The footage is silent, flickering, and only a handful of frames long. But the people in it are unmistakably alive and moving. That footage, the Roundhay garden scene, is widely recognized as the earliest surviving motion picture in human history. It's easy to forget, in an age where we carry cameras in our pockets and shoot video without thinking, what an astonishing thing that was. Loup Prances didn't just invent a gadget. He invented the ability to preserve time itself, to show someone a moment that had already passed and make them believe it was still happening. A few weeks after the garden scene, he filmed traffic on Leeds Bridge. Same single-lens camera, same principle. By 1889, he was refining the apparatus further, preparing for something bigger. He wanted to demonstrate his invention publicly in the United States, not just to scientists or engineers, but to audiences who would pay to see moving images. He wanted to prove that motion pictures weren't just a laboratory curiosity, they were the future. By mid-1890, he was ready. He planned to travel to America, bring his equipment, and stage a public exhibition that would establish his priority as the inventor of motion pictures. It was a gamble. Demonstrations like this required investors, publicity, and flawless execution. But if it worked, his name would be cemented in history. In early September 1890, he traveled to France to visit his brother Albert in Dijon. It was supposed to be a brief trip, a chance to see family before the long journey across the Atlantic. Micro cliffhanger 1. He bought his ticket. He packed his equipment. On September 16th, he stepped onto an express train bound for Paris. He never reached the other end. When the train arrived in Paris, Loup Prances wasn't aboard. His family in England waited for him to arrive. Days passed. No telegram, no letter, no word. Elizabeth Lou Prance contacted authorities. Searches were conducted along the rail line between Dijon and Paris. Nothing. No body was found on the tracks, no wreckage, no luggage left behind in a station. Witnesses later claimed they remembered seeing a man matching his description board the train in Dijon, but no one could say for certain what happened after that. His equipment was gone, his luggage was gone. The man himself was gone. In an era before widespread forensic investigation, before missing persons networks, a disappearance like this was almost impossible to solve. People vanished. Accidents happened. Bodies went unrecovered. But this wasn't a man wandering into the wilderness. This was a documented inventor boarding a scheduled train on a busy line between two major cities and simply ceasing to exist. France in 1890 was modern enough to have railways, telegraphs, and newspapers. It wasn't a remote frontier where someone could plausibly disappear without a trace. And yet that's exactly what happened. There are four main theories about what happened to Louis Lou Prance. None of them has ever been proven. The first, accident. He fell from the train or suffered some kind of medical emergency, and his body was never found. Rail travel in the 1890s was dangerous. Doors didn't lock the way they do now. People did fall, but that theory struggles to explain why his luggage also vanished, or why a body would go undiscovered on a heavily traveled route. The second, suicide. Some early accounts speculated that Lou Prance was under financial and personal pressure and chose to end his life. His family vigorously disputed this. There was no note, no clear motive, and, crucially, he was about to claim the recognition he'd spent years working toward. Why disappear on the edge of triumph? The third, foul play. This is the theory that has haunted Lou Prance's descendants for over a century. The timing of his disappearance was extraordinarily convenient for his rivals in the emerging motion picture industry. A few years later, a major patent war would erupt in the United States over who could claim priority for motion picture technology. Lou Prance's absence meant he couldn't testify, couldn't defend his patents, couldn't fight for credit. But there's no evidence linking any specific party to his disappearance. It remains purely circumstantial. The fourth, voluntary disappearance. A few later accounts, including one disputed claim about a family scandal, suggested Lou Prance might have chosen to vanish. But this theory collapses under its own weight. He had no apparent reason to abandon his life's work at the moment it was about to pay off. 4 explanations. Not one of them fits cleanly. While Elizabeth Lou Prance and her family searched railway stations and filed reports with French authorities, something else was happening an ocean away. In the United States, the race to control motion picture technology was accelerating. Thomas Edison's company was among the most aggressive players. Patents were being filed, contested, and litigated. The question of who got there first, who could claim the legal and commercial rights to this new medium, was worth millions. In 1898, a courtroom in New York heard testimony related to Edison-era motion picture patents. Lou Prance's son, A. Diolf, who had assisted his father with the Leeds experiments, testified on his father's behalf. The family's claim didn't prevail in the way they'd hoped. The legal machinery moved on. And then, in 1901, Adolphe Lou Prance died under circumstances that remain unclear. Some accounts describe it as a hunting accident. The loss deepened the family's grief and cemented the sense that something cursed had followed Louis Lou Prance's work. Here's the detail that reframes everything. When Lou Prance vanished in 1890, he wasn't just an inventor with a clever machine. He was a man on the verge of public recognition, carrying equipment that could prove his priority over everyone else in the field. His disappearance didn't just erase him from the train, it erased him from the patent fight, from the courtroom, from the history books in the way he would have written them. The people who eventually got credit for inventing motion pictures, Edison, the Lumiere brothers, others, all came later or operated in parallel. Lou Prance was there first. The Round Hay Garden scene proves it. But he wasn't there to defend it when it mattered most. History doesn't just belong to the victors. It belongs to the people who show up. Louis Lou Prance's family spent decades trying to preserve his legacy. Elizabeth fought for recognition of his work until her death. Museums now acknowledge the round hay garden scene as a foundational artifact, but the disappearance itself remains unsolved. Somewhere between Dijon and Paris, in September of 1890, a man who taught the world how to capture time simply ran out of his own. The man who first made a camera, remember motion left no trace of his last moments. Not a body, not a clue, just a gap in the record where a life used to be, and a question that outlived everyone who tried to answer it. If this one kept you up tonight, good. New stories every day, Monday through Saturday. Subscribe so the next one finds you too. Follow the Unlit Room wherever you listen. Tell a friend who can't sleep. Full story on the main channel. Follow if you're wide awake. That was the Unlit Room. See you in the dark.